is funk. Thoughts deep, boys steeped in the depths that he sunk. Big stress, depressed in the middle of fall. Sky gray, I late in the thick of it all. I wonder, how long can a human survive just staying alive or carrying the rest of the tribe? Waiting for the day to arrive or struggling dies, and I be doing way, way more than getting by. So why? Cop myself a cup of coffee, sipping water in it softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. Hey, cop myself a cup of coffee, sipping water in it softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. Realize life is so much more than just living a day. Every day I can sit and reflect and reconnect to myself and all that I've been given. See, giving up is not an option. So while I'm looking at gray skies, I'll be adopting a new way to deal with a test. Lord, relieve me of stress. The rain be looking like when blessings drop in. And so I cop myself a cup of coffee, sip of water, rain it softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. Water in it softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. Hey, here we go. Yeah, let's do this. Y'all ready? 1, 2, 3. In times of test, let no harm beset me, oh my Lord, oh my Lord.
Good evening, everybody. This is The Body We Stand. It's Sunday night, the 13th of July. We're moving through the summer, aren't we? Also, we can be found on Facebook. If you're unfamiliar with it, just go there and look for The Body We Stand Facebook group. You'll find us, you'll be approved, and you'll be a member of our very popular Facebook group. You can also find us on YouTube. We are broadcasting right now from YouTube. Just look in the search for The Body We Stand. You'll see a few different things, but eventually you'll find ours. Ours is the political podcast, so we ask that you subscribe. That's all we want. We are not a monetized channel, so that means not only do you not have to pay anything, but you won't see any advertisements, so you'll be able to enjoy it without any interruption. And nobody hates ads more than I do, so it'd be really nice if you could subscribe to our channel. Well, without any further ado, this Sunday I'd like to introduce my co-host. That's David Price. He's from Arlington, Virginia. This show is from Bridgeton, New Jersey, but we are via Arlington. So somebody's saying the volume has to go up. I would like everybody to check, because not everybody is on the same state of tune with this. Last time we had the same problem. So let's go to Dave Price in Arlington, Virginia. Dave, how are you doing, and what's on your mind today?
If you're asking personally, doing very well. If you're asking professionally, doing well. If you're asking politically, of course, it's what would commonly be called, I guess, even God would probably call it this, a clusterfuck. And things are happening so fast and are so out of control that I talked to Brian about this, and we're actually going to begin each show with, it's not a new feature really, it's an organizational feature, I would call it. And I haven't really named it yet, so I'll be figuring out a name, but we're going to call it, for now, a working title will be the Trump Trio. And what will it encompass is I will come on and I'll say, of all the things that Trump did, these are the three that I find the most disturbing. So it is my list. I mean, in that sense, it's not a poll or it's not scientific, or, I guess I could call the White House and say, hey, Donald, what did you do that was the most weird this week? But I didn't. So, Brian, what I selected for this week, first, and they're not in a priority order, but, this week the president threatened to remove Rosie O'Donnell's citizenship. Now, what is wrong with that? That may be the most un-American thing that a president has ever brought up in my lifetime or in the lifetime of democracy. You just don't do that. You shouldn't do it. And of course he did it. Now we still got this circus going on with tariffs. And no matter what happens now with the tariffs, it doesn't really matter. Trump has blown the idea anyway. I'm going to put tariffs on today. No, tomorrow. I'm going to say 2 weeks. Nope, but tomorrow. Yes. Inconsistency is a good thing. No. Changing your mind is a good thing, but not coming up with a plan first that you can stick to. And Trump, there was an old saying that said, let the firstlings of my mind be the lastlings of my mouth. And basically what it said is shut up and think and then talk. And of course, he doesn't. He just rambles, whatever comes. In literature, it's called stream of consciousness. What it does is you just blurt out whatever. And then the third thing that I thought was maybe the most interesting of all of them in a certain way is Trump is now telling everybody in MAGA, stop it, drop the Epstein thing. And I want to talk about that because there's so much there. And there are people, Brian, I don't know if you're one, there are people that think this may be the most significant rift to come with MAGA, more than Musk and Trump and whatever. And some political knowledgeable people are saying this may show that Trump didn't have the power over MAGA that he thought and many of us thought. So which one you want to start with tonight? They're all good and they're all bad, but which one you want to take?
Dave, I think I would like to start with the Epstein case. We'll go kind of in reverse order.
Go ahead.
As you know, that some of Trump's supporters are very angered by the fact that nothing came up on that list. They were kind of banking on that list for years. They were thinking that perhaps there were prominent Democrats on that list, perhaps some Republicans. And then all of a sudden, the DOJ puts out this statement saying there's nobody on that list. In fact, if you want to find that list, if you want to find that statement by the DOJ, go to Divided We Stand. That's posted in a PDF. It's a very short read, so you can't miss. So before I ask the question, but I think is an important question that actually my wife Ronnie brought up, we have to first look at, number one, why are they upset? Well, first of all, the list. They didn't release the list because there's nothing to release, was basically what they're saying. That's an issue because that's all they brought up was the list. And then the second thing is it comes off as a lack of transparency. People have always been skeptical about Epstein's death, whether it was a suicide or not. And in that DOJ document, they say it was a suicide. Myself, when it first occurred, I thought it was plausible that it was a suicide, and we'd actually done a show on Head in the Box about that. And now I think I was seriously wrong about it. And the last thing is, before I ask the question, is the perceived lies from these officials, and you've seen how some officials within the administration, like that lunatic Dan Bongino, looks like he's on his way out. Many people, even Alan Dershowitz, the guy I really hate, he's saying that there is a list. So it seems to be a feud within MAGA, and I've seen a lot of videos from Occupy Democrats saying, this is it. This is the thing where they're going to cannibalize each other. And then Ronnie asked me, said today, what do you think is going to happen with MAGA with this? Because everybody keeps telling her, well, they're going to go at it, and this is finally it. And she's very skeptical, and I'm very skeptical about it. So I'm going to ask you, Dave. Is there any traction to this within MAGA, this civil war within MAGA, or is it something you feel is just going to blow in the wind like the rest of them?
Well, if we were doing a Star Warsian talk tonight, I'd say, I feel a great disturbance in the force, right? Now, what happens with that disturbance, of course, is what you're asking, what we all want to know. We know the following, or we should know the following, okay? There was a gentleman named Epstein who had an island and an apartment and a plane where all kinds of actions happened. Okay, we know that's a fact. It's been found to be true in court that he had at least one person, I'm sure he had more, who was kind of the procurer, who would go around and pick. And it seems to be a preponderance of young girls were involved in this. There's documented statements from about 100 different girls floating around, whether they've been sworn to in court, but they're out there. All right. It's not beyond belief, given what I know about Epstein and given what I know about rich people, that it is indeed true. Why do I say that? Well, Epstein is what I would call was a climber. He was on the outside. He was really a nobody. But he had this desire, as often happens, I want to be in the in crowd. Now, there's two ways to go about that. One is to get a lot of money, because that puts you in automatically.
And he
right?
did have a lot of money.
At
least,
but he
seemingly.
didn't. To start, he didn't. So he took the other approach, which then leads to the money, which was, let me provide a service that they need. And the service was young girls. Now,
the Lolita Express, I think they called it, right?
Exactly.
From the
and
Rockoff.
Now, when you see pictures, and you're going to hear me say this 1,000 times between now and whenever, honestly, people, we're past the point. You can't believe anything you read, and you can't believe anything you see. I'm telling you right now. You have to check everything out. Go more depth. So with this story, you're hearing all kinds of things, right? But there's actually a picture out there that is a doctored picture. Everybody's seen it, of Trump, Epstein, and young girls. That is not a real picture. Okay, love to tell you it was. It's not. So even with this, we know that you have to, really put everything through. And I don't get a nickel out of this, but if you just want a quick place to go to Snopes. I think it's one of the best.
Who would? I mean, let's suppose that they are guilty of what they were doing. They still would not. I mean, like any criminal, they're just not going to expose themselves anyway.
Well, I don't know. Listen, I mean, that's I agree with you. But you know what, Brian? The longer this goes on, I really believe this. There was a world. Let's say, an America and a world, but we'll start with America. But also, there was America before Trump, and there's an America after Trump.
Right.
Think about it. If you really, people sit back and see how much has changed in the decade that Trump was there. And I could see someone like Trump wanting to show his masculinity. There's a report, again, that he, and it came from his wife in their marital dispute, that he was a frequent user of anything that would make he would make his penis larger. He certainly, grab him by the pussy. He's got who knows how the count changes. I think it's up to 27, 28 women claimed that he in some way was improper, and those claims range from grabbing her by the pussy all the way up to rape. So anything that happened in that lifestyle would not surprise me. And it's always been that way, Brian, but it's just as society loses more boundaries, the bad dudes get worse, right? Because bad dudes are usually the ones that don't agree to the social rules. So we get P. Diddy. So we get Jeffrey Epstein. So we get Trump. Now, all of that is meaningless unless something can be done. Now, you taught, for how many years have you taught now?
Since 1980, October 84. This will be 42.
Okay. And I had more sense than you. I got out at 25. But you know and I know that there are young girls who are fascinated with older men because they have the power, they have whatever, they have daddy issues. So they've got all those ones. And we know from the number of teachers that I defended who had sexual relations with students, and you see it all the time, that and others. You see it with preachers, you see it with politicians, you see it with policemen, anybody, there's a power thing going on. All this stuff is going on. So, of course, if you're going to take advantage of it, Epstein provided a way to do that. If, I couldn't do it, but if a person could have sex with an underage girl or even, a 60-year-old man with an 18-year-old girl. What I would say, VD, I hope your VD is getting better, but because it does hurt, the idea of it is, all I would ask, I'm not saying they're not, I'm saying they have to be checked. And I'm no supporter of Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Epstein. The videos, and the other thing that makes me suspect of that a little bit is why when those videos show up, and I know the New York Times, they say, is bought now, and the Washington Post is bought. No, there are reporters that would be dying to get that story. So I'm not saying it's not true, but the two things. A, they have to be checked to be valid, and B, then they have to be put out there. And for some reason, now saying they're out there is...
Can we first, I want to make sure we understand clear, because I think we have to define whether we can see, there could be a video of Trump being around young people. Are we talking about videos of them being together? That's where I'm kind of confused.
I don't know. So if you could help us out, certainly.
Because there is a difference. There could be anybody with young people. But that doesn't mean that
true.
There's anything
That's
going on.
true. But the idea of it is,
and I'm not saying this isn't the case or is the case. I'm just saying I'm not trying to know the difference here.
No, and I would agree with that. It's not that common. What is not that common, VD? Help me out.
We went over last week.
I know, Vincent David. I know. Anyway, and I like your middle name a lot. The idea of it is I'm not even sure what the reaction will be if indeed it's proven. I can see a reaction. Well, that's Trump being Trump.
Right. If it becomes acceptable
as Trump being Trump.
Trump's
think
society.
Think about if you go back to the day he came down the escalator till today. I would ask everyone to look and see how many actions he has done that prior to his entrance into politics would have been career killers. I bet you 250.
Right.
As a conservative number. So, how much has it changed? But to get back to your point, and what I think Ronnie asked you the question, and what we're dealing with is this different? And I think the part of that, but Vincent David, what's happening there is, I'm going to go with Brian's point. How could I say it? Just being there is bad enough in the old days. All right, I would agree.
Right.
In today's, no.
Why are you there?
No way. It's like the first. Well, of course, Stormy was the first, but the infamous didn't exist Russian P tapes, you know. So it just seems everything slides with Trump. So what do you think, Brian? I mean, what would it take? Let's do it this way. What would it take? What would this have to? This is week one of this controversy. What has to happen next that you could see either MAGA giving up on him or MAGA rallying around him?
Okay, first a real quick comment again about the videos. The one video I've seen, Trump in his suit, talking with Epstein, whispering something he's doing is, like I'm into the party type of move. That in itself, to me, you don't have to show me anything. He's whispering something, You remember when perhaps when you're in college, and well, you were 9 or 10 years before me, Dave, but when I was going to college in the late 70s and 80s, the big thing was dance music, and you go uptown to a club, and guys would, talk with each other, and they'll say, "Hey, look at this,"
Yeah, right.
It's kind of like the locker room talk and stuff like that. I'm not saying I did, but it's just it was happening. I've seen that in locker rooms, by the way, when playing hockey. That was going on a lot, and I didn't like it. But that's another story. But when somebody does something like that, it doesn't take much to understand where his mind is and how he feels. And we know he's very, very sexist. He's a narcissist. So I don't even, like you said, I don't even think we need to have an actual video of him with a teenage girl. I wouldn't put it beyond someone like Trump to do something like that. However, I think he's very conscious of getting found out. So, and the same thing in a certain sense with Epstein. Of course, he was found out. Okay, that's the one thing that I'm not too concerned either way about the video. Video whether it's real or not. It to me, and I'm not trying to quash the argument about it because I don't want to have that the focus of the show. Just to me, the fact that he's with Epstein, that is a problem.
Well,
when Dershowitz said, "Well, I got a massage from a 50-year-old woman. I had my underwear on." Well, don't make excuses. You were where you were, whether you did it or not. You took a risk. There's a certain risk factor in behaving like that. And this was not a risk of love. This was a risk of just pure carnal lust, or whatever it was. I assume that's what it is. So we'll throw that part away. Now going into what I feel, the fact that I'm kind of negative about what's going on with, no matter what's been thrown at Trump or in the news about Trump, he's done this, he's done that. People just don't give a shit because they're in this frenzy about us, and I keep trying to go back to that. There is a deep, and I made a very quick short walk and talk this week about can society be insane. That part of society, I believe, is insane because there is a disconnect. There is at least a disconnect with us. We consider ourselves the rational crowd, and they find us insulting. It's kind of like they're the dumb kid in the elementary school class, and we're the smart kid, and they can't stand the person who was able to recite the entire alphabet in second grade or first grade or whatever that is. So automatically, Dave, and for those of you who are out there, I have this feeling that no, nothing. It just won't matter. It won't matter until something happens to. They've got to get into. I'm going to use a metaphor, but they've got to go into the ditch before they say, "Hey, I get it." It's kind of like the religious person who keeps saying, Jesus heals or whatever. And I don't want to go to this hospital. I'll be fine. But when they're in the trenches and something happens, they say, okay, I'll go to the doctor. That kind of thing. So, or I'll go to the hospital. So that has to happen. Now, on the other hand, some people, Dave, have said that okay, you can see the stress in Bongino's voice and in his face. I mean, you didn't even have to listen to Bongino. You look at these micro movements of his face, and that's usually pretty easy to tell the real, what is really behind somebody. Like when somebody first sees you, like they might have this like maybe not such a good look, and then they smile, but you really know from that micro movement their real feeling. And you can only kind of get that from doing that a few times and actually noticing it, because that there's bullshit, because once they go from that look to that smile. So in any case, I could see that in these people, but I guess I have to use another analogy, perhaps, and that is like the mob. The mobster kills this and that, and so there's a whole slew of illegal activities going on, and you say, well, sooner or later they got to say, we're not going to put up with this, but they're afraid of the mob. The question is, who are they afraid of? Are they afraid of Trump? Are they afraid of the Proud Boys? Are they afraid of their neighbors? I think there's just fear everywhere, and that's a really dangerous state to be in, is that fear.
Well, think about it. If you were talking today on both sides, and I won't use both sides. I don't like that. There's three sides. Three sides. What do you mean? Three sides. One, there's pro-Trump. Two, there's anti-Trump. And there's three, I don't give a flying fadoobie. Let me live my life.
And that's been consistent.
Brian,
consistent for 100 years.
Been more than that. It was that way when the country formed.
Okay, right. Okay, okay.
Yeah, I wasn't correcting you. I'm just saying. But we kind of have this idea of North versus South, right? Revolution versus England, this kind of thing. But there's always been this group of people. And so how's this? The Supreme Court has done an extraordinary amount of damage. And basically what it has done is it said the president is above the law. Now, the question comes, of course, these acts, if they were committed, came before he was president. But there'll be people, and I know there will be people who do two things. Number one, I don't care about that. I care about my cost of eggs, right? I don't care what he did. Number two, that's just Trump being Trump.
Right, because these people aren't discussing this like we are discussing it right here.
No.
And not trying to pat us on the back. We just have to read.
No. And they're into real life situations.
They're not a picnic, these people here.
And three, you spoke earlier of locker room. And locker room talk has existed since the gladiators had locker rooms. It's nothing new.
Doesn't make it acceptable, but yes,
I didn't say that. Most young men, hopefully, grow out of it. Some don't, and almost all of them are MAGA. So you've also got a group in this thing who think Trump had the opportunity. Trump took the opportunity. That's a good thing. But what we don't know is where those two things. We don't know where those numbers lie, broad-based. And number two, we don't know what, if anything, will sway one to the other side. I know for a fact there's nothing Donald Trump could do that would get me on my side. Nothing on his side.
Right.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I don't know if that's the same. You've got Joe Rogan, who has, up until, Jason Kelsey's wife bested him for a couple weeks, has the #1 podcast in America. That's disturbing in and of itself. But
and by the way, we could probably even mention that is you can see a paradigm shift in numbers of how we watch media. It's like Joe Rogan does this podcast from his computer, and he's getting more viewers
than any other news organization. So I think this is one of those. I'm going to kind of take maybe it's like a cop out, but it's not. I think this is my personal belief. Anything that roils up MAGA and Trump and Musk and company is a good thing. Not saying they're good people, just saying it's a good thing. Trump has to make a decision now. He really does. Does he defend Pan Biondi and all the people that came out and said there is no report? And they're lying.
By the way, he did defend her.
Oh, I know that. He's gone. He said, "Great, she's doing a great." And basically, what he said, not in these words, but basically, to his own people, MAGA, shut the fuck up. Epstein, and then he compounded it, as he often does, by saying it was drafted by two people, Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. Now, it was not drafted by Hillary Clinton. It was not drafted by Barack Obama. There is a list, but here's the thing, Brian, does it exist anymore? Because a list that existed that doesn't exist anymore.
They burn it or put it down the toilet. And what was Merrick Garland doing?
Well, let's just say this. I mean, I'd love anybody to dispute this. Merrick Garland, good. I'm glad.
Colossal failure.
Media's Touch is a tremendous news organization right now, and that's where you need to go.
But they are a little
So I'm really-
happy Pollyanna, to be honest with you.
Well,
they're the ones who are saying they're destroying. They breaking news. MAGA's destroying itself. No, they're not. Midas Touch. They are not destroying themselves. And I like Midas Touch, and then they're doing a good job. But they're like Lawrence O'Donnell. Great, I love Lawrence O'Donnell. But he's middle of the show. You have a feeling, that's it for Trump. He's going to do himself in.
Well, you know what? But again, you have to understand, or not. You have to understand. They're also. It depends on motivation. And their motivation, in that case, maybe we gotta, it looks so bleak, we gotta give hope. Now, the problem with giving false hope, we can debate that all night. But the thing is, for some reason, Brian, and we could do 20 shows, we need experts, because I can't explain. For some reason, and this goes back to Rush Limbaugh and the advent of, advocacy radio, or hate radio, if you want. More people get more invested and involved on the right side of the political scale than they do on the left. There's never been maybe it's now, but the closest we really got was Al Franken for a while, and even he bombed out.
But you've said this correctly, that there's something just the nature of the Democratic Party. It's so diversified,
right,
you can't do that.
Well, and that's part of it. And also, okay, I think that's a big part. Another is most liberals can see shades of gray in things, and most conservatives do not. They just don't. It's just this way. It's my way or the highway, is one thinking. This is right and this is wrong. So we have that, but I'll close my part of this with, it is something definitely to watch. That's number one. And number two, as we said, any split in MAGA is good for us. And number three, there are some well-informed people who think Trump may not come back from this. So let's wait and see.
One last thing, from a psychologist,
sure.
Do you think that this could be a form of idolatry? Because
I
mean, they only go to the church, for an hour, and they don't really give a shit. But if you think about, they're worshiping. Did you
hear Trump's interview this week, where he once again came across, "God saved me for a reason. My ear still hurts at night."
Right.
Well, there are people out there. I know them. Yes, you know what? I don't know. I don't want him that close to I know exactly that feeling, but so, and then on top of all that, even if all this comes out, who the hell's going to prosecute him and who the hell's going to find him guilty?
Right. So
let's
control all three.
Let's just leave it at this. This is something to keep. This is something to keep an eye on. And just to see how it develops. Now, you can say that about everything he does, but this is one. If you don't mind, I'm going to take the second one. And
sure, let's do it.
Then we'll
move on. We got to move on.
Yeah. Look, I'm not a huge fan of Rosie O'Donnell. Okay? But Rosie O'Donnell has been, since her New York days, an enemy of Donald Trump. She's not afraid to speak out. She's not afraid to attack him. She has attacked him in the past. Now, when earlier in his first term, when they had the Kremlin annex, for anyone who doesn't know that, it started the night that it was found out in Finland. It was the first secret meeting between Trump and Putin, and a young political aide down here says, "This is hard. We got to do something."
And probably without an American translator too.
There was no American translator. None. So what happens is, we got to do something about this. Terrible. Somebody else said, well, "Wait a minute. Why wait? Let's go now." And they went that night to the White House, and that turned into a year and a half of protests every night at the White House. And one Monday, I was down there, and Rosie brought a whole busload of actors from Broadway, because Broadway is closed, it's shuttered on Monday night. And they did, it was kind of cool, they did some things for hair and some things from this and that and the other. So Rosie is, an activist. Now, I don't know if everybody knows this, but Rosie O'Donnell has left the country. You know how everybody says, if it happens, I'm going to leave the country? Well, she did. Her rationale, as she says it, is she saw the writing on the wall. She knew she was a target, but she has a daughter. I think it's a daughter who apparently is on the spectrum for autism and may have some sexual identity questions anyway. And she knew that this was not the place that she wanted to raise her daughter for all these reasons. Well, then Trump comes along and he says, that Rosie O'Donnell, she's kind of a bitch. And you know what? I'm considering taking her citizenship away. No president, to my knowledge, has ever said that to an individual person when we're not at war.
Right.
No president. Now, if somebody can disprove that, I'd love it, but I don't think. Yes.
Yeah, I was shocked, Dave. I mean,
and some of those people we're going to miss. The doctors are leaving, scientists are leaving. So it's not, we can live without Rosie O'Donnell being in America, okay? But as you start losing these people, it is going to be tough. And I don't know how long that exodus will continue, simply because as Trump, and that'll take us to our third point later, as Trump makes more enemies, that doesn't help the American people. So anyway, but back to Rosie. No president should do that. I would say it is actually an impeachable offense. Now, it won't happen. There's no reason to bring up impeachment charges at this point. The only time to bring them up again is if you have enough votes in the Senate. Yes, you're right. That's true. Yes, we'll just leave it at that. Because he thought John Lennon was really the symbol or emblem of everything that was wrong with America. And he was also being fed reports almost daily at that point by J. Edgar Hoover. I do have to break in here for a moment and go off topic for just a second. A friend of mine in D.C. who is sort of the Forrest Gump of D.C., really. I mean, he's been involved with everything. In fact, to me, the coolest thing is when David Bowie came to America, right? He was an unknown. Nobody knew who he was. And this person and his brother picked him up at the airport, and David Bowie stayed at his house his first visit. Well, today he broke kind of a bombshell. We've known each other before. I never brought it up. Loosely, the story goes like this. He was at a friend's house, and the friend lived next to J. Edgar Hoover. And they had a fence, but his friend had a hole in the fence. And he said, we looked through, and we saw J. Edgar Hoover in a Speedo, Clyde Tolson, his alleged lover, in a Speedo. They were laying on beach reclining chairs, and they were holding hands. So when I mentioned, it made me think of it when I mentioned Hoover supplying information for Donald Trump. Hoover, by the way, would have fit in perfectly in this administration.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
He would have fit in perfectly. So that kind of tells you the kind of person Hoover was. But getting back to this idea that we don't know with Trump's mind, I do think he's worse than he was before in every way possible. But what we don't know is he at any stage of dementia? Is he getting more and more delusional? Does he take Adderall? He doesn't. I really believe he doesn't drink, and I don't think he would do pleasure drugs at this point. That's just a feel. I can't. If anybody, I wouldn't be surprised. But no. But Adderall. Look at his sleep patterns. Even those. When does that man sleep?
Right. He doesn't sleep
out in public.
Right.
But so my point being, it's bad when there's something wrong with your president. And somebody raised the point today. Okay, well, I got to interview you. Get to me. I'd love to do, because I do DC ratings, so that'd be great. What would happen? Well, let me do it this way, Brian. Again, we're doing the thing I always say don't do. We're speculating on what we think may happen.
Well, we do a lot of speculating on this show.
Well, you have to now because it's just. I'm not going to say it's going to happen. Okay. Do you think? Two questions. Do you think Donald Trump would actually go so far to take away somebody's citizenship, the category of, obviously he'll do it with a Mexican, but some foreigner, someone of Rosie O'Donnell's stature, or do you think he's just blowing smoke? That's one question. And then the second question is, how do you think the American public would act if such a thing happened?
I think, first of all, I'll answer your second question. If I think it'll be just as divided as we are now. Yeah. I think, for example, if somebody said we're going to take Nancy Pelosi's citizenship away, I am sure Maggots would definitely be okay with that, because they don't even consider the law of the land important. The Constitution is out the door.
Right.
And quite frankly, they don't even know anything about the Constitution, so it just doesn't matter. They just have an emotion, and they want it done, and if they did that, that's fine. So I think some of the public would be outraged, and some wouldn't. Okay? The first question you said is about...
do you think he's really serious, or do you think he's just,
I think it has, as we get into the next topic about the tariffs, I think it's kind of the same thing. I think it's a bluff, but it's a calculated bluff only in the sense that it creates, he's trying to create intimidation on Rosie O'Donnell. And I think he has, at least in my opinion, I'm speculating, he likes this constant, well, let's just say he likes the fanfare of him being in the news and saying these outrageous comments.
Well, he that also kind of from Roy Cohn.
And if it's steamrolled, I think that he would do that if there was no blowback from any of the courts or anything like that. I don't know how the hell he pulled off, but these are new times. It's a brave new world.
And one of his mottos that he lives by is keep the chaos constant, because the idea of if the chaos is constant, I can emerge the hero.
Right.
And that's part of the Roy Cohn theory of government. And there you are. All right, Brian, I'm going to defer to you a lot in this, because you're the economic expert on this show. You are. I mean, against me, anybody could be.
Okay.
A 5-year-old could be. Because, but I mean, you would be no matter what. That's what you do. I mean, you teach business. You've studied business.
I did study. I could probably get out a minor in economics, but
yeah, you would. Yeah, no. But so okay, just real quickly. I know people know this, but I always like to hear the 25 word or less. What is a tariff and what does it do? So let's start there. In 25 words, get it down to. Remember, Einstein supposedly said, he didn't, but Einstein supposedly said, you're only intelligent if you can explain a concept to a 6th grader. So let's bring up, imagine tariffs to a 6th grader. What would you say?
If you're listening out there and you don't know what a tariff is, you first have to know the difference between import and export. When we import something, we're receiving something. When we are selling something to another country, that's an export. Okay, and a lot of people think a tariff is we're going to place a tariff on that something on something that is exported to us. It's an import, but that the other country is going to be paying for it. Okay, which is not the case. But that's how we didn't have to pay taxes back in the revolutionary times, because there weren't a lot of people. So the best way to get money was just tax on goods. Okay, it was essentially a sales tax.
Mm-hmm.
It's essentially a sales tax. So people say it's just a tax. Well, it's a sales tax, but the question is who's receiving the sales tax. Now, there's two things going on. Number one, it's generating revenue for the federal government. Okay, so you're not going to see many deficits right now until they overspend again. So there's a lot of money that's going right to the government. Okay. But it also is meant to curb the exporting country. It's to curb their power, their power to sell to us, because they're not going to be able to. We're not obviously going to be able to buy as many things. For example, we might not be able to buy as many Toyotas because there's too many tax on it. So the idea behind tariffing now is, well, they'll bring their factories here, and that will increase employment. And to a certain extent, that could work, but
no,
that's something that would take years. First of all, you just can't say, oh, well, tomorrow we're going to have a plan. And this is, by the way, Dave, this is what the Russians say, after the sanctions, well, we'll just do it ourselves. Well, you can say that. It's like people who say, "Well, let's just get rid of the middleman." Well, yeah, you can get rid of the middleman, but you can't get rid of what the middleman does. There's still a function of that. And it's like saying, well, I'll just cut my own lawn. Well, yeah, we'll get your ass out there and you cut it and you weed whack and let's see how well you do when it's 98 degrees. So the tariff is actually a sales tax. The only difference is that the consumer is paying for it, but the money is going to our government. What they do with it, I don't pretend to know, because they're going to decide what they do and where that's going to go. It'll make the numbers look pretty.
But isn't it true that if tariffs, okay, let's go, okay, a lot of computer parts are made in China, right? Or India. I mean, not Germany.
Right. It's a world economy. So anything that you buy that is any type of multifaceted arrangement,
and
it's likely to have
all of the industrial, well, China's industrialized, but all of the Western nations, we say, are relying on the Eastern nations to provide these things, because in general, you could produce anything much cheaper in China than you could produce anything here in the United States.
Right.
And just go and look at all the made in China, including Make America Great Again hats.
Right.
And someone said that if you could, and Brian, everything, you can't do it overnight. Manufacturing is never coming back to America. It's just not.
Well, who's going to sit there for $10 an hour and work in the factory? Again, that you can say that you're going to bring these things back, but who's going to do it? Especially if you're taking the immigrants out. So
well,
your ass has got to do it.
That's exactly. Well, the proposal now is one of the proposals for welfare and some other things is that you must get a job.
Right. So the point is, Dave.
So somebody's 80-year-old grandmother is going to go to
work.
Right.
So the question is, first of all, because this gets very deep, actually, not the tariff itself, but it gets deep because Trump doesn't have a real strong idea of what a tariff is, I'm sure. But there's, like anything else that he does, there has to be somebody who is intelligent behind it. And these people are very cunning. There's obviously the connection of power and money. What are they getting from this? And therein lies a lot of the problem, because we don't really know. But we do know that he can't do this alone. There's got to be something behind it, and that's the big problem, because those people do know what they're doing when they say let's do the tariffs. I mean, maybe it could be they're paying off the certain companies who don't want to have the competition. This is it's a horrific game.
Well, and the thing was, and it was not disputed, that if you were to produce the iPhone that most of us have in America, it would cost $3,500.
Probably, yeah.
Prior to any,
because you have to pay them more, and you have the shipping and all that. It's just yes.
Yes. So there you are. Now, what else I find frightening is tariffs are on Monday. They're off on Tuesday. They're back on Wednesday. 2 weeks I'm going to do them. No, it's August 1st. Nope, I'm going over here.
Right.
And once again, last week, why I think it is important to discuss, he goes back to two of our longtime biggest allies, the EU and Canada. Now, you have Canadian friends from playing hockey there. We've had quite a few Canadians who listen, and we converse with them. We've had Canadians on the show, and all of them, now I'm sure not all of Canada feels this way, but they pretty much, one good thing is they understand the difference between the American people and Donald Trump America. Yes. They do get that. Right. And actually a lot of stars. Now, think about Mexico. Think of all the things that Donald Trump and ICE and cosplay Kristi Noem have done. And the Mexicans still send delegations over to help the flood victims in Texas.
Right.
So, but through all of this comes this idea of why it's the only thing I can come up with. Trump has no idea of world policy, no idea of how it's supposed to be, no idea of what works. And if I hear one more person say, he's a good businessman, it's just not true. He is one of the worst businessmen.
Is a mobster a good businessman because they're a mobster, and they make money?
Well, I'm even taking it away.
No, I know. I'm just saying.
I know. I could make an argument that a mobster, if your bottom line is to get power and money. Yeah,
Right.
mobster's pretty good. Trump hasn't even done that. Everything's been bankrupt. Now he bounces back because he doesn't pay off his debts. He does all this stuff. It is almost impossible to bankrupt 3 casinos. I mean, they're
Casinos-
money-making machines.
Right. Yeah.
But he's done that. So I don't trust his economic policies. What Gary just said would be absolutely true. Trump doesn't do anything if it doesn't benefit him, right? But the one thing he may not understand, I think, and I was just thinking about this now, okay? What does Putin do with his enemies?
Well,
For the
let's just
most
say
part.
this: for the most part, for some strange reason, they seem to jump out of windows.
Exactly. And see, that's the difference between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin and Chairman Mao and Joseph Stalin and Adolf Hitler. Now, am I bemoaning the fact that he doesn't have that whatever that thing is? No, of course it's good, but it's still a dangerous
Yeah, well,
game.
don't forget, Putin wasn't always like that. Right around 2000, 2001, that's when we started seeing it. In the beginning, it wasn't like that, but he slowly got more and more power.
Well, and that's what happens. And you and I've had
And the
this
question is,
discussion.
does it happen here, though, Dave? That's the thing.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. And you and I differ a little bit on that. And I hope I'm right and you're wrong, but I'm not sure. Because of your expertise in Russian, and you've seen it happen there, and you've been there when it's actually happening. I mean, you were
Right.
there. What my hope, if you will, my optimism is Russia has never had a democracy, and we have. So the question becomes, how well did people understand the democracy? And how upset are they if we lose it?
Right, and that's the point. Do these Americans, these third that you're saying are in limbo, and then the third who do support, do they actually understand what a democracy is? You could go into a class. How many kids out of 20 kids are going to know what a democracy is?
Well, you know what's interesting about that, and we were discussing this with a group down here, a small group in D.C. There's so many things that are wrong with education. We could start today and go forever and talk about them. But here's one thing that I really do fault for that. And Gary, when his name came up, we've had this discussion, he and I too. Let me do it this way. When I was in school, which, yes, we fought off dinosaurs. But we had to take, and of course, a class called civics. And it was basically American government, basically what it was. And I don't know if what it made me was more radical because I realized what we were supposed to have and we didn't have it. But at least we came out, I think, it was presented to us. It was up to us to accept it or reject it, right? But it was there. Now, this was not necessarily a bad thing, but it turned out to be a bad thing. And then people in business and educators, wait a minute, this is the world now. And I guarantee you, and Bridgeton is one of the systems that did it, they eliminated civics and put in world history. There are more world history classes now in America than there are civics classes, by an astounding number. Now, my point would be, what good is it to understand everything about the world? And trust me, the kids don't get to know everything about the world. A knock on history teachers. The worst history teachers teach crayon map coloring. But anyway, the good ones do much more than that.
If I can just interject for a second, too, Dave.
Sure.
You are a writer, and we have to be very careful when you read history because you don't experience it. You're just getting a word that defines something that happened. So we don't have a lot of respect for history because when we talk about things like slavery or we talk about things like World War II or World War I, you were talking about the trenches in World War I briefly, you don't ever really experience it. And it's very hard to teach that.
It is, but what's interesting about civics is that's not history exactly.
Right,
Do you know what I
right.
mean?
Then I'm defending your point.
No, I'm just saying. What I find interesting is, history, what is it? History is a tale written by the victors or the powerful. Now, there are things, and I'd say in Richmond community, Seabrook, and I was raised there. I mean, it's not like I was 75 million miles away. I did not know anything about Japanese internment till I got to college. And there were at least 200 families in my area who had been, well, maybe that's high, say 100, at least 150 families who had been actually interned and then ended up at Seabrook. My point is, we don't always know. We're finding out new things. History is changeable. It hinges on certain things. But the difference between that and civics is, yes, there's been amendments, 27 of them, but do you realize that document has remained the same? And that's a problem. That's a whole nother problem. But if you teach that document, that's what you should be able to judge America on. Good job, Gary. Now, my point is that going to be the panacea to bring that third that doesn't care now back in? They may be lost causes. And look, Brian, we all have things we don't care about, okay? I don't really care. I use this example all the time. Probably not a good thing since I'm starting a sports podcast here in D.C. But when I was 12 years old, I was consumed with sports. That was the end all and be all of my life. And probably from that point on, I've gotten less and less interested in sports. So I really don't care now what happens. So I understand that we don't care, and some people rabid interest, but you got to care about politics simply because politics affects your life. It affects the life of those around you. It affects your children, your grandchildren, and all the generations to come. Mm-hmm. So I don't really see. I understand. I'm not interested in it from the one standpoint, and it's not overwhelming to really grasp. It's really not. It's overwhelming the way people use it, but then you just say, well, that's wrong. I don't know if you saw, and this will be my last kind of contribution for tonight. In Texas, Trump actually asked Governor Abbott, who in my estimation is, it's hard to say, but he's certainly the top 5 worst governors in America. He said, we said, we got to shore this up. We got to shore this up. So they have now, there's a plan to gerrymander the state further. They're taking every black district that has significant numbers and remerging them into a white district where the white will be dominant over the black. That's not the way it works, kids, but that's the way power is there. So kind of to sum up, like I said, I think, first of all, my personal opinion, even if nothing bad has it, the Rosie O'Donnell, I'm going to take away her citizenship, to me, horrible and deplorable. Shouldn't be done, non-presidential, a non-starter. The tariffs, no to our, unless you're going to do them for our enemies, and even then I'm not sure, but certainly not to the EU and to Canada. And the EU can, by the way, they can survive without us. They can. People say they can't. Oh yeah, they can. And Citizens United and Electoral College, no question. 2 of the worst decisions ever made. Electoral College was made over slavery, and Citizens United was made over oligarchs. And neither one of their slaveholders and oligarchs are not good people. What do we got? Oh, and then with the Epstein thing, I'm just not sure that it will amount to anything. And my guess is they can't be this stupid. They can't have left that list exist and say it's not there. They can't.
It might not be there now, that's for sure.
No, I said it won't be. That's what,
Right.
You can't. If I'm going to say it's not there and it's there, it's going to not there get gone.
Right. Right.
It's just very simple.
Dave, I think I agree.
Like intended
your
purpose,
points.
Similar to Citizens United, albeit unethical. Yes.
Yeah, I worry most about the gerrymander, but that's.
Can I say one other thing? I said.
Go ahead.
The problem becomes Citizens United. We'd have to get a new Supreme Court. Okay. Electoral College. We have to get enough people. You could have a constitutional amendment to change it, but it's in the Constitution, or enough senators and Congress. And look, I love when MAGA people, which I still converse with on my Facebook page because I kind of find it funny, but when they say stuff like, all Democrats or all this or all that, with Electoral College, look, if Democrats, I'm not sure that a lot of Democrats want change. Why? They get elected the way it is now. Why would you want to change it?
Right.
Now, that's not all of them. It's not a blanket indictment. But what I'm saying, so we don't have enough support to do those things. And Vincent David is absolutely right. They're crucial. All right. Have good luck with that, Anthony, with your medicals.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, it could.
But
And again,
yeah,
Vincent
no.
David, we got to figure out, and I'd love to work with you on that. We have to figure out how to get better candidates. That's part of it. And next week, maybe we'll talk a little bit about the mayoral situation in New York, and not what it says about New York, but what it says about the country. Okay.
All right.
For everybody listening tonight, thank you if you were listening live. Thank you if you're listening later.
Dave, I like the show.
and
It was a nice show. I like
We appreciate it. It gives us a chance to vent. We're not experts, as Brian points out every week, but we're two. I think the best way to describe it is two people who are really concerned that we are living in the death of democracy. We are living in the Roman Empire end of the United States Empire. We're living in a time where kindness and compassion and empathy are viewed as a weakness rather than a strength. And this is one thing we can do. Just even if it's just venting, it's good. So if you would go out and urge other people, get them here, get them to this point, or get them to the Facebook page, or get them somewhere else. I mean, it doesn't have to be us. We talked tonight a couple organizations that are doing great work, but just
do.
We all have to do something.
Something, right? On that note, Dave, thank you very much. Good talking to you this week, and we'll do this again next week. I'll probably talk to you during the week. You're going to have to work at the school this week, but that I'll get around that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. You cannot know how much Dave and I appreciate you watching. I know not a lot of people, it's not a big show, but it's a show, and we put our work in here. So please make sure you subscribe if you haven't done so already, and also become a member on our Facebook page. And at that note, thank you very much.